Good, sir.
Good, how are you?
Good. See everything going on tonight, right? I know you do.
Busy night in town.
It's a busy night. And they're already ramping up. I read quite a few people are getting out for the police.
Yeah, they like to sleep.
Special night out.
Right.
And then Jamie's got his big thing going on at Cedar River.
No?
Jamie does.
Again, that was Thursday night, that's
I
tonight.
did too. It's like, Jamie, why'd you do that, dude? Yeah, so. Dude, I can't go to it. Well, I'll tell my
I
story.
would like to find out, when I'm using that thing, sometimes I don't even touch something, I just hover over it and it changes.
6 o'clock, I will call to order the meeting of the Keystone Heights Airport Authority. This is October the 3rd, 2023. It is 6 p.m. as far as our start time. And I want to welcome everyone that's here. Ask you to please stand for prayer and then Pledge of Allegiance. And Mr. Van Zandt, I didn't get to ask you earlier, but would you do the prayer for us?
Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for this evening. We thank you for this nice airport that we have to enjoy and to be able to accommodate people coming in and out for all kinds of different reasons. Lord, we thank you for our military use, which started this, Lord, and we just pray for protection on those men and women tonight, Lord, that are defending freedom all over the world. Lord, we thank you for our law enforcement and other first responders. Lord, it's National Night Out. You see all this, Lord, but every day we hear things that we don't like, that we do to each other, Lord. So I ask that you send your spirit down and bring a little more peace, Lord, if possible, we pray. And we ask that tonight, as we deliberate and do business here on the behalf of the airport and Keystone Heights, Lord, that everything that's done and said would honor and glorify your Son, Jesus, in whom I offer this prayer. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. I am going to call the roll. Vice Chair Fryer?
Here.
Mr. Dagenet?
Here.
Mr. Ludwig?
Here.
Mr. Van Zandt?
Here.
Mr. Seamer?
Here.
Ms. Rutowski is not here. In her place is Mayor Rhoden Roth. Thank you,
Here.
Mayor, for being here.
Sure.
And Mr. Sherbach.
Here.
And our Camp Landing representative, Jay Robertson. He's here. We appreciate you. And also I'm going to list for our record that we have Craig Kuhn. I'll introduce him in a little bit, our new airport manager. And with that, we're going to begin our agenda. I have no public comment cards, so we'll move on to our consent agenda, item number 2. On the agenda, you had received this by email several days ago. We have a lot, and I hope you had an opportunity to look through all of that. We're looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda, which consists of the August 2023 financials, approval of the September 5th, 2023 Keystone Heights Airport Authority Board meeting minutes, the September 14th, 2023 workshop minutes, and September 26th, 2023 special call meeting minutes.
Motion.
I'll second that.
Is that Mr. Seamer? Okay. All right, I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving on to reports. Mr. Prane, good to have you back with us.
Amen. Glad to be back. Well, good evening, board and the public. I'll update you on 2 projects. As you know, for several months, we've been working on a water and sewer feasibility study. Just as a reminder, the catalyst for that was some conversations that were held a couple years ago with the County Utility Authority about extending water and sewer utilities to the airport. And they were definitely cordial, but they asked for, if you will, hard numbers and conceptual layouts of what might be used as public utilities on the airport in the future. So we've been going through a series of technical memos addressing potable water, fire protection water, and sanitary sewer to serve existing facilities and future growth and development at the airport. And of course, another component of that is all of the Clay County utilities that exist now are towards town, so to speak. Water extends a certain distance, sewer extends a certain distance, but neither of those come all the way to the airport. So Clay County Utility Authority had also asked us to, with their input, to account for not only what the airport might use in terms of water demand, fire protection demand, and sanitary sewer generation. They asked us to look at a section between the airport and Speedville Road, is that what it's called? I think it has a number.
219.
21B.
What might happen between here and there, so that their calculations for sizing pipe and planning for the future would include not only the airport, but other represented development along that corridor. So I say all that to say we are ready to produce our final technical memo, which I will deliver, I guess, to Craig tomorrow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'll copy Mike, because I think Mike has the historical knowledge of it as well. And David, I think you've been tracking this as a board member. And of course, I could make it available anybody that wants to review it, but this memo is probably the most complete, because whereas the previous memos dealt with each of those utilities singularly, focused on potable water, we focused on sanitary sewer, and then fire protection. This one includes all three of them, and it summarizes the earlier findings and calculations. This technical memo also shows a layout for all three of those systems, a conceptual layout, again, potable water, fire protection water, and sanitary sewer. Again, it includes not only coming up Airport Road to serve all these existing facilities, growth on both sides and on the east end of Airport Road, but also includes legs of those systems to serve the future west side development area alongside both sides and at the end of the road that Bradford County just completed recently. So after we get comments from airport and the city, I've been copying Miss Lynn on the city, and she coordinates review of that through the city staff. The system has been, we get input from airport, city, and this group, then we supply the memo to CCUA, they provide comment. And then the last step of the study, after we finalize this conceptual layout, will be to provide cost estimates. And at that point, we'll deliver one final deliverable, including the costs. That'll be the end of the study. So, you know, on a completion level, we're probably at 85% complete. Again, a lot of what's in this technical memo is recitations of earlier subject matter memos. What's added is the full narrative for each system, and again, a drawing a conceptual layout. So I don't know if anybody has any specific questions about that. I know I didn't come with the document, but I have it in my email, and it's queued up to send out tomorrow. So anybody have any questions on that? Yes, sir.
Just one quick question, just as a reminder, you mentioned that the feasibility study includes the distance from Airport Road back to what, 21B? And does that also include the population of the RV park and future expansion there as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Part of what we did was talk to the owner, whose name escapes me. Vince, thank you. Our utility designers talked to Vince, I think, on a couple of occasions. That was back when Maria was still here, so Maria helped facilitate that, and we included his existing, and I think he actually had at the time maybe 2 stages of growth that were planned. And those were not, it was not new news to CCUA, but to document it and put it in our report just sort of gives them a better picture of what the demands will be in the future. I can tell you this, like most utility authorities, CCUA is probably gonna take the data we provide and put their own spin on it. I mean, they have professionals that develop, they have their own way of generating water demand and sanitary sewer supply. I say those two because just to remind you, on fire protection, we're not going to rely on CCUA for fire protection water. Part of our study showed that the most economical way to provide fire protection water at the airport was to continue with above ground tankage systems and to interconnect them as necessary. So you'll continue with the tank you have up here in the hangar area, expand that as necessary, expand the distribution system for that. And then on the west side, there will be a separate tank system to provide fire water for the largest of those, the Rockland campus, and then the other campuses that, parcels that get built out. So that was a decision gate in the study, was to determine whether we would be relying on CCUA for fire protection water. In the end, they can't provide enough pressure to meet the demand because their line is already sized, and they would have to go way back on their system to upsize the line to provide us with the amount of fire protection water we need. Aircraft fire suppression systems need a lot of pressure to operate. So you can get that from tankage and booster pumps. So we're going to continue that scheme, but we're showing all of that to CCUA so they can see what we're doing.
Once CCUA finishes reviewing the feasibility study, comes back with their comments, and then any other additional information you may have to provide or AECom provides, when does it finally get to a point where it's like, okay, this is the finished product, and then will it be CCUA's initiative to then determine what those costs would be? And how will those logistics work in that we get it back to a point where we have to go in with the city and doing appropriations requests, to actually fund the project?
So our report will have cost estimates in it when it's finished. We haven't started those yet. We're waiting to get concurrence on the system layouts, but we'll provide cost estimates. I think maybe buried in your question is, would CCUA prepare their own cost estimates? They probably will. How will they align with ours? I'm not sure, but we'll stay in the study to reconcile any big differences there. And yes, I think after that, once you have a series of numbers in a published report and they have their construction numbers, I think there'll be something involved with phasing that. If it's a really big number, probably nobody thinks we can bite all that off at once, but what's the first phase, what makes sense, and how much would that cost? So I think that's something we'll rely on CCUA to give us feedback on, is what do they think a reasonable first phase of work is? And to what extent could they provide funding or shared funding? I think that's all future conversations that I think some of those conversations have taken place. I know Lynn instigated some of that with CCUA early to try to engage them in that, and they're definitely interested in cooperative. They know what's happening and what the need is, so I think they want to meet the need and provide the service. So.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Prang on those two projects?
And that was kind of along my question line, is how much would they fund? And I'm assuming this wouldn't be a DOT funding, this would be going to Tallahassee.
Yeah, you would not get funding from this from DOT. It would either be a federal source.
Is CCUA, is it a private enterprise or is it a government? Is it a municipality?
Yes, I think it's both of those.
Yeah, those board members are appointed by the Board of Clay County Commissioners.
Okay.
But then they're not an extension of Clay County government.
Correct.
And I don't.
It's kind of like the Bat Cave. I've never really figured it out.
I don't think they have.
Do we ever?
I don't believe they have taxing.
That might be.
Either. I'm not a Clay County resident, so you guys should probably verify that. But when we've talked to them, their financial model is the type of model where, yes, they will build it, or you can build it and they'll take it over. But the customers have to support the cost of the system. They're not just in the business of building things that aren't self-supporting in some way. So they're looking for the customer base and the flow, if you will, so that they can charge customers to pay for what they're taking on. So in that sense, I don't know that it's a for model, but it's at least a not-for-profit break-even model.
Being that a lot of this study is in Bradford County, and what's Bradford County's role into, input into the project?
David, I think Bradford County is aware that the study's going on, but we have not been, they're not one of the stakeholders that's reviewing and providing comments. I think that they would probably, because of other partnerships, I think they could be brought in as an advocate for the project, but I don't know that anybody has thought that Bradford County would fund themselves any part of it. I do think, again, just based on my experience here with other projects in Bradford County, they would support funding requests and work to make those happen, appropriations requests, but I don't think, no one has counted on them for any source of the funding.
And I can tell you, I attended the Bradford County Commissioner meeting this morning. They talked about appropriations starting to gear up for what they're going to submit on the county level. The only water sewer project that they're looking at is extending water sewer from the city out State Road 16 to west of the truck bypass. There's about 15 acres out there that's a planned unit development, some other development that's proposed. So I know that's the only thing from a water sewer standpoint that they're actually going to request appropriations funding for.
Hey, Craig, just to help you come up to speed, when I dump the new technical memo on you tomorrow, I'll also give you a copy of our scope of services, and I can feed you all of the previous tech memos as well as a body of knowledge.
Yeah.
And that
Sounds
will
good.
definitely cure your insomnia.
Right.
You're just a water sewer kind of a guy.
Yeah.
Make sure juices flow. So,
All right, anything else for Mr. Sprain?
Any project?
yeah, so the next, so on the lighting project, does anybody remember what I had been quasi-promising about construction from previous updates?
October, November.
Well, that's somebody with a good memory. So I talked to the contractor today. I've been communicating with them about every 2 weeks. And they've been telling me, yes, we're waiting for materials. As of today, they have delivery commitments on almost everything before the end of October. Light fixtures are experiencing a bit of a delay, and the regulator. So the regulator is experiencing a big delay. Like if you order a regulator today, they're quoting 13 months. This one was ordered several months ago, probably in July. The regulator was ordered. The initial commitment on the regulator was December. But again, this is a company that purchases regulators every month, multiple for other projects. They're being told on some other projects, it might be May. So I've already started a conversation with Scott and Mike and Craig about the possibility that the lights on runway 1129 don't function now. I think the contractor is gonna have everything they need except the regulator by maybe November 1-ish, first week in November. If we can confirm that, the suggestion was for them to come, do the 3 to 4 weeks of construction, tear out all the old system, build all the new system, and employ the old regulator to power the system until the new regulator is delivered. We would pay out everything except the new regulator. And then when the new regulator gets delivered in whatever month, they'll come swap it out. Scott's gonna give me a picture of the old regulator so I can just do some verification on the size and make sure has the proper, I think it's a 3-step, which would be appropriate. So we got some legwork on that. So I think I'm still targeting probably more like November timeframe to actually have construction ongoing. Just as a reminder, when we construct the runway, there will be workers in the runway environment on 1129 every day. So the runway will be closed day and night. And we will have some short-term closures that affect 25 And 5, because remember, they're also replacing the runway end identifier lights, the flashing strobes.
right.
So there'll be some short time, maybe just inter-day closures associated with that. Once we get confirmation that we're headed towards early November, the contractor committed to me that we would have at least a 2-week advance notice. And so probably in the next 2 to 3 weeks, I'll be looking to schedule a pre-construction meeting with Craig, Mike, and any other, Scott's been tracking the project, so we will have a pre-construction meeting just to confirm their gate usage, their staging area, things like that. This is a contractor that's worked here before, so they're not completely foreign to it, to the airport. But we'll have a meeting with them before that starts up, so we're still looking at maybe first or second week in November to start.
Can you, in your conversations with them, I know you said we would not get a lighted X for the end of the runways. And I think the last time we had any, and Mike, I don't know if you've seen them down there, but I think we had rolled up vinyl that made the X's, but I looked the other day, I don't see them in the maintenance shop anymore. Can they provide that as part of the grant, or?
They might be required to provide it anyway, the vinyl X's, but I'll check the plans.
Okay.
I'd committed to getting plans to Craig tomorrow, so he has an updated set. So
Yeah, I don't know if somebody didn't know what they were and maybe threw them away, or, and they were old anyway, but I'll look again, but if you can ask
I
them
think
if they're
that's
gonna be able
probably
to
part of the
provide that.
contractor's requirement anyway, to provide
Okay.
those through the duration of the project.
Okay.
They'll just sandbag them down on the numbers
Okay.
for that period of time.
I know in past projects, when runways have been affected, part of that coordination through the airport manager and you and Scott has been, or Mike at the time, was to notify the tenants, give them a heads up, in advance that, okay, this is gonna be closed, or we've got this kind of work going on. So I know that'll be part of it, but just for the record and for information.
It's probably not too early to issue an early notification of pending work scheduled to be finalized.
Okay.
And then when we get that 2-week, when they actually, drop the hammer and say, we're coming in 2 weeks, at that point, we can probably refresh that notice again with an actual graphic that would depict the closure, just, not that anybody needs, but sometimes a picture will just solidify, oh yeah, the runway 1129 is gonna be closed.
And then you said 523 would just be a daily partial closure?
Yeah, I don't think there'll be any long-term closures on 523. A lot of what they have to do can be done, monitoring the radio. I mean, we're probably gonna have to NOTAM the reels out of service. But
Okay.
if we have a 3 or 4 day cycle where we're gonna demo reels and install new ones, we'll wanna NOTAM them out of service. But in terms of actual doing the work, unless we know there's a heavy flying day for Rockland or something like that, they can probably move in and out of the environment for a couple hours at a time and get their work done.
Okay.
We'll hash those details out at the pre-construction meeting. And you guys have already got AECOM under contract to do part-time inspection on that, so my plan is I'll be here on a regular basis, and I mentioned before, you know my inspector, Don Cartwright. He's currently working at Gainesville, so he'll be popping over here a couple days a week, probably early and or late, before and after he does a shift at Gainesville. Any other questions?
Oh, so the runway lights are on one regulator and the PAPI lights are on another. Have they got the one for the PAPI lights? Have they got the regulator, or is it the same?
I think the 1129 PAPIs are on the panel
Okay,
with the transformer.
I can't remember, maybe they are.
I'll look at the plans. Yeah.
So they don't have a regulator, okay.
Direct transformers and they're on the panel.
Okay, okay. Yep, that would be right, yep.
So, and I don't think we're changing the power supply. We're changing the PAPIs out, same location, same paths, and we're using the same power supply.
Okay.
So they'll just be.
Wiring and everything.
Are they on now?
No.
I was gonna say they're probably already
No.
out of service.
11 is on, it's 29 that's out.
29 is out, yes.
That's a fixture
When we
failure.
NOTAM the runway closed, you'll have to, I don't think you have to
I
know.
think that the package is separate from the edge lining.
Yeah, they're on their own, each one is on its own
Right,
breaker on the panel.
Right,
correct.
but I think you're right. I think there's just a standalone transformer in there. Okay.
Anything else?
It's gonna be great, good new lighting.
Okay, look forward to it.
All right,
Should be fun.
thank you, Mr. Frank. All right. Moving on to items that I had, all the signing that you did to be authorized to sign checks for the airport. Ameris Bank has processed all of that. Some of the good news is that, in talking with Miss Rebecca Farmer, found out that to add Craig, we're not gonna have to go through that whole process again. So you won't have writer's cramp by signing all of those forms and documents that Ameris requires. So that's something that Craig and I are gonna work on, get him down there to the bank and take care of that. And so with that, if you have not met Craig Kuhn is our new airport manager. We are thrilled to have him on board. He officially started yesterday. And as I told the city council last night, technically Lori and Mike had him working Thursday and Friday. So he hasn't had much of a break since he's gotten here. And I asked Craig earlier if he'd just share with the board and our guests who may not have met him a little bit about himself. And
yeah, so, nope, I think I've met most people in here, but for those that aren't aware, I've, got 20 years experience in aviation through line guy and pilot and airport operations. So last position was airport manager as well as at a different airport. But I mostly wanted to focus on, the board and appreciation for the process that you guys had to go through to make the selection, because I know that wasn't easy. And so I take it very seriously that you thought of enough of my resume and me to select me for the position. So I appreciate that, and we're gonna do everything we can to make sure we keep things advancing and moving forward, so.
all right, good to have you on board.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. Mr. Fryer, airfield update.
Okay, Justin and I have been working feverishly for the last, I wouldn't say feverishly, but for the last week and a half. So we have a phenomenon around here that was occurring for a number of years, tumbleweed. And it comes out of, I believe the plant is called love grass, and there's nothing to love about it. But anyway, typically, when you see our mowing patterns, we mow adjacent and parallel to the runways. We mow in between the runways and around the taxiways. But this time you'll notice if you go out, the whole infield has been mowed. Just finished up today around noon. By doing this, when this plant, the way I describe it, it goes into a blush. It's a fuzzy plant. It's really pretty. I think people use them ornamentally, but when there are just tons of them all over the field, when they bloom and mature, they turn into a tumbleweed. And Mr. Nichols, I can attest, at the old FBO, you'd walk out the door and they would be knee deep. They'd blow from all over the field.
No exaggeration.
All in my hangar.
No exaggeration.
Hanger doors, I don't know how they do it. They fold themselves up, they get under hanger doors and they get in there. They're just a nuisance. But again, this year, I think this will be the third year in a row. They had explored burning in the past. And the problem is, I think you have to have 3 successive days where it's below freezing for 6 hours or more, or 8 hours, which you can't find in Florida. So anyway, they are done.
And that's huge. That's
Yeah.
600 plus acres.
Yeah, it's, you're just riding and riding and riding and riding. And when you get down, and if you get the opportunity sometime and you on the porch, you can look, there's a stand of trees down there at the northwest point out there, and it is basically a pond. And so the closer we get to that, it's like being in a mud bogging. It's just digging this stuff up, and miraculously that big John Deere gets through it. So it did its job again this year. But anyway, we hope we've resolved that. The other thing is we had the DOT inspection. I'll let Mr. Ludwig and Michael talk about that. And the big thing we've got going on right now, I really don't want to spend a lot of time discussing it, but Mike has been really good. I've got to tell y'all, when he took the position of airfield manager, it was because Luke was leaving and we needed somebody really quickly. And about as quick as he got his feet wet there and got his knowledge, then he found out Maria was leaving. But Mike has taken a direct stance in working on a lot of our equipment. He's willing to try before he calls a technician out because of the cost, associated with the labor. But I'm here to tell you, we've been fighting with this Fuel Master, this card reader, and it is not a budgeted item. But I think, what did you say? I'm guessing now with this weekend's events, we've been, about 11 or 12 days of that this year since January?
It's closer to probably 15.
Okay.
We've had 6-7 days in the last 2 months.
So what this is, it's the card reader on the avgas pump. We have self-serve 24 hours a day, much like you'd have at a gas station. The card reader, and I'm going to pick your brain. I don't think Bill would know this, but I think that thing was put in the late 90s. Does that sound about right to you?
I don't know.
Or do you remember, it was here when I got here again?
It was here, so I was on the board in 2015, and it was here way before that, so, I don't know when it was installed.
We're thinking if it's not 30 years, it's probably in the 22 to 25.
That issue's been brought up when I was on the board.
Right. I think our days of kicking that can down the road is here.
There's a lot better card readers out there. I used to go to a lot of different airports.
Well, what we're doing is, so for the sake of the board tonight, rather than discuss it in any depth, we have a problem. The problem seems to, and I'm not saying it's anything to do with the movement of that pump, but it does seem like the frequency of repair problems have occurred since we moved the fueling station. And when was that taxiway project? Was that 3 years ago?
It's 3 years.
It just seems like it's gotten worse. We don't know if it's a grounding issue. Sometimes it's lightning. We don't know, but it's getting more and more problematic. So Mike and Craig are going to work on getting some quotes. There is QT Pod, and without getting into much depth, Craig already knows about them, and they sunsetted one of their series, and they're just flat out telling their customers, we're not going to service you anymore. Fuel Master is the way we were told to go in the past, so they'll research that. We'll put it as an agenda item next month, and then maybe we can talk about it.
Craig and I discussed that, and fortunately, where he just came from, that was one of the projects and tasks that he had to accomplish with upgrading their system. So he's familiar with the latest and greatest from Fuel Master, so that's a plus for us as well.
Right.
And here's the thing, we can always go back and amend our budget, take a look at our budget again and see what needs to be done once we, get some prices, and it's just something we've got to do. We can't afford to have that self-serve.
Well, and this is true, and just for the sake of everybody's information, so I, as a pilot, if, you're supposed to have a 30-minute reserve left worth of fuel in the airplane when you land. So you do that legally on a VFR day, visual flight rules, and you get here, and so you have let's say you've got 35 minutes of fuel. Well, then you've either got to go to Gainesville or Palatka, and now you're violating the law because you won't land at that airport with your reserve. Beyond that, we've got 3 flight schools on the field. And when we tell them it's shut down, I've even had to come out on the weekends, and I just do that so Mike doesn't have to drive from Jacksonville or Justin doesn't have to come from his house. And we turn the pump on manually, then we have to come in the office and run the credit card in the office. And it's something we've got to address. It's, I think it's just tired out. So anyway, that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Fryer. Moving on, Mr. Ludwig.
I'm gonna start out with my last topic first, just to kind of explain that situation. It's a minor detail, but I think I don't know if it was taken the wrong way, and I just kind of wanted to get that out in the open first. When at the beginning or right prior to us having these meetings each month, we're asked to submit our agenda topics, and we'll do that by email. And one of the agenda topics that I have done for several months has always been basically, I specifically will put in whatever specific topics I do want to talk about, but I also will always add at the end, or somewhere in that, general discussion and concerns. That's not necessarily a topic, and I know it was addressed as it needs to be specific, and that's not specific, so it's not going to be added to the list. What that is basically, it was just a time block that I wanted to be able to have for each of the topics that I did have listed, so we could just have discussion on it or express concerns, and basically open debate on any of the topics that I may bring up. That's all it is. So I just kind of wanted to clarify that's what it is, and if that's an issue, me putting that on there, I won't add that anymore. But again, we have, we all know, we have 1 month or one time a month when we get together, and this is the time that I feel that we need to be able to come in and be able to communicate with each other, ask questions, discuss topics, whatever they are, and be able to try to, work those out for the betterment of the airport. So again, that's all that was, and I would just always add it instead of putting it at the end of each one of my things. I know it's kind of a given, but I just wanted to make sure there was allotted time and a time block there that I had, we could go and we could discuss each of these topics. So that's all. So I just want to make sure we're all on the same page.
So one of the things I thought about that when I saw it on the agenda, obviously our board meetings are to handle action items where we need to take action. If there's items that we need, as our bylaws state there in Article 3, talks about our meetings, special call meetings, workshops. When we've got a lot of data, when we've got presentations, need to have a lot of discussion about something, that's typically where, we have workshops, the city has workshops for that same type format and for that reason. One of the things that we could do, and I want to bring this up while we're talking about this, the city does this at the end of their meeting, at the end of their agenda, they have a time for council comments. So if there was a need, if the board thinks that there's a need to do that, then we can modify our agenda as well and add that as an item if that's the pleasure of the board. So that's another option that's out there, available to us. Just food for thought.
Yeah, I mean, if that's all I'm asking for, as far as, because again, as a new board member coming in, I'm going to have a lot of questions, and we've been dealing with that for the last several months of trying to get up to speed on things and questioning. And just like I've said all along, just because things have been done a certain way for however long doesn't always necessarily mean they're being done right. I can't come in and ask some of the people that are here right now because either they hadn't been here long enough or they don't have the knowledge. So I have to be able to ask in this setting here, and you guys have been here longer than pretty much anybody else at this airport right now. So, this is the time that I like to be able to do that. So that's the only reason. So whether we do it at the end of the meetings, and sometimes maybe there's nothing to go in and asking questions about. But as far as like creating a workshop for each topic, I think that would get tiresome real quick because, I think that as far as my involvement goes, as long as I'm involved with this, there are going to be times that I'm going to have questions because as a safety security person, I believe that should be doing that. Other than just coming in and giving a presentation and saying this is what we did this last month or whatever, and that's it. So as we move along with this through the process, I just want to be able to have some type of time to where we can talk about and have discussion. And generally the topics that I bring up sometimes as I'm working through this is I just felt like more than just a presentation, I want to be able to discuss them. So, because maybe we can find a better way sometimes.
Well, one of the avenues may be that for a question that you may have, especially related to the airport, safety, security, whatever, and for all of us, is if we have questions, go first to the airport manager, sit down and talk with them about it, talk to Mike about it, and then if they don't have the answer, then certainly we need to talk about it, in our board meeting. So I'm good with that. Yeah. And I'm good too, like I say, if it's the board pleasure and we want to add that comment time at the end of our agenda, we can do that.
I think that probably would be the way to handle it, is maybe have it at the end, because certainly you are going to have questions. The other thing about an agenda is we're pretty well aware through the grapevine or whatever, if Mike said something or that there may be a certain topic, or we may have been at the last meeting, we know there's something, but the agenda is also for the public to know. Mm-hmm. is there something I need to be there for? If it's not on the agenda and they can't see it, then they don't really have a way to. But I personally wouldn't have a problem with having comments at the end, and we can all pass. Sometimes y'all do it at city council. Sometimes I don't have anything, and then you have a council person that does have something. So I would say we should add it. I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, and as far as like, not giving the public an opportunity to, know in advance or whatever, that's, for the record, if each topic that I have ever brought up that I've discussed here publicly has always been in the agenda. I've always listed them out specifically. So, because I believe that's what this whole, every bit of this is the transparency and for the public, to be able to be a part and see what's going on. That was, however we format it, that's what I would, I guess, request is, however it's done, just to be able to have an opportunity where we can discuss and ask questions, because I believe it is gonna be needed. I mean, from time to time, it's not every time, but from time to time, I think we may need to elaborate more on, or discuss situations or whatever.
So, and I think another reason that we should consider that seriously is because a lot of us are involved in other things other than just airport that affects the airport. For example, Mr. Dagenet being on the CTE down at the school, some of the other involvement that he has down there, and he can report back during that council time, just like city council does. The mayor talks about, she's been to different events and kind of brings the council up to date and the public up to date as well. I mentioned earlier, I was at county commissioner meeting, so Mr. Van Zant may be at Tallahassee sometime, so I think that'd be an opportune time. If it's not an agenda
I'm fine with
item.
that if we just have general consensus to add it. But it's not a competition. We don't have to take 10 or 15 minutes apiece just because the guy next to you did.
That's right.
Yeah, you can do it as long as we're up by 7.
Yeah.
Y'all were right on the money last night.
The mayor's looking at her watch.
Y'all were right on the money last night. That was like perfect.
Dude, I'm watching that clock the whole time.
All right,
As far as my next, I just started with the last one first because I just wanted to clear that up.
Go
first.
ahead, move on.
On the next one there, the FDOT inspection. I appreciate the opportunity of being able to be involved with that. That meant a tremendous amount to me to be able to do that. I learned a lot that day, getting to be a part of that process and getting out there on that airfield. Now, because of my prior jobs, I'm used to being on airfields. It's one of those things that's not new to me, but never having the opportunity to slow down and walk around on an airfield and learn about some of the specifics that the inspector is looking for. I know for a lot of people, they would say, well, that's a mundane, that's kind of whatever, boring. To me, I thought it was a very neat experience to understand. Each number has a specific measurement, and it needs to be this long or this wide. Same with center line stripes or any of the other markings that are out there, and to learn about different things, visual aids with the lights. There was a lot of neat opportunities that came along with that. And I feel like it was important also for me to be able to try to build a good rapport there with Mr. Smith, because, I guess he had been the one also that had reviewed, because they've had some movement there within the Florida DOT, the security plan. So, just seeing that aspect of the job and what's comes of it was a very good opportunity, and I got to use, and he did let me participate in using the prism there for the double right angle there, where he can stand center line and then look and show in different, and you're looking and making sure there's no obstructions in the way, and then I guess it's called an inclinometer, the other, and being able to check the glide path, and all that was very interesting, and seeing how it's done. I've seen those people operate throughout my whole career, but never had that opportunity to actually spend time with them and walk around. And he's a very nice gentleman, loves his job, and was very forthcoming with the information. And he told me several times, he said, I know I'm bombarding you with stuff, and I said, no, keep it coming, because I do enjoy that. So I appreciate that opportunity of you stepping aside.
And did he tell you how many airports he inspects a year?
Yeah,
That's all he does. He wakes up, he inspects airports. He goes to sleep, he wakes up and he inspects airports.
It's his world.
That's his world, yeah,
it is.
exactly.
It's a neat world to learn.
Yep.
So I appreciate that opportunity
Yep, good,
of being able
good.
to do that. Also, as far as the airport manager interviews, I'm not telling anybody anything new. I'm glad that to get to be a part of and to see that process the whole way through from all of us and everything that went into that, because it was very long day, especially that day. But even setting up the matrix when we got together for the workshop and just seeing everybody come to the table and bring something different and the ideas that we were coming up with and questions and those type of things. And honestly, from my part, and I think everybody here can agree, I mean, that was a tough day. It was a long, tough day. We're very good candidates, you know, and we're very excited with what you brought to the table. And I look forward to the future, and I believe everybody else, I can speak for everybody else, and I'm looking forward to exciting times ahead. So I just want to formally welcome you aboard.
Thank you.
So I
Yeah.
appreciate it, and look forward to getting to know you.
Of course, yeah, look forward to working with everybody.
And the last thing I have on here is staffing levels. And the only thing I have with that is just, and again, I know as a disclaimer up front, I know that's not our responsibility once we've got the airport manager position in place, and then that will fall under, but just out of curiosity, because I know as far as staffing goes, and I've mentioned it before, you know, it's a bonus having Scott as extra manpower, but what is like a maximum amount of people that have you guys ever had or can have as far as, or possibility of, you know, having as far as physical workers on the airfield that do everything that's required as far as, you know, on the airfield that are working under the airfield manager? Is there a set number to that? Is it just only one?
I think everything's been kind of unfortunately determined by our budget, but we've got the three
That and the
full-time.
demand for what's going on, obviously from April to November, it's all hands on deck mowing. And Mr. Fryer certainly has been an asset to the staff in being able to do that. So I will tell you that Craig and I have already had conversations about, in fact, I'll let you address this too, is with respect to the airfield supervisor position. But he's looking all the way through at all of our staff and what those demands are. Unfortunately, some of it's seasonal, you know, that mowing period. So that's when we need that extra part-time person. But I think that's something that, you know, Craig's going to be evaluating to see how we can staff for the whole year, but then really be staffed well for that.
How many full-time positions do you have?
Full-time?
Yeah.
Right now, we have two.
Two?
Three, I'm sorry,
We got
three.
three.
Okay. Does that include like admin up front or? Yeah.
Lori, the bookkeeper,
Okay.
of course, the airport manager and the airfield manager,
Okay, gotcha. 3 full-time.
And then we have two part-time.
and then two.
And 2 part-time? Okay.
One full-time volunteer.
Yeah, exactly. I was just,
I know that's an asset of having that, and it's just whatever we have to do to make sure our new manager has everything he needs, I think is a big part of it.
Absolutely.
Certainly.
What I've seen done before and what could be done, Craig, you know, build out a wiring diagram of what you want and what duties and responsibilities, and if it's 5 or 6 people and we can only fund 3 or 4, well, we might just still be right at 3.
right.
But there's always different pots of money if you have the particulars already built out and the needs shown, then you can go seek out additional funding, and I can help you do that.
Okay, that sounds good.
We seem kind of skinny, but Mr. Prang, would you share how many employees Swanee County Airport has?
2.
Yeah, it's usually pretty.
That's live vote.
Yeah. My vote.
So, I mean, when he told me that, it blew me away. I'm like, so they've got the guy that answers the phone and the guy that mows.
Yeah.
But they all wear different hats, you know, I'm sure.
Everything.
So, it does seem skinny, but we get by. And one reason I kind of got involved is, this was kind of a personnel issue, but we were getting behind. And that's when I believe Maria decided we had 2 young people working on the weekends unsupervised, and it just wasn't working. So she kind of moved things around, and that's when we started seeing the improvement occurring, is when there was weekdays and supervision. So.
How much time do you think you spend mowing? I mean, it's probably a really loaded question based on
varies.
season.
You know,
Kind of an average?
I usually get here at 4 o'clock in the morning. I leave at midnight. Actually, I'll get in here about 10, most days 9:30 or 10, and I might be on the mower I don't know, 4 hours, 5 hours, it just depends.
Just on the average, yeah,
Yeah.
during that season.
So,
probably per
yeah,
day.
that's when we get busy. And so it's not, so one thing that has been different this year, I'll say, there are probably opportunities when the employees actually could have been on there. But as I say, Mike has been really working to get some of these other issues at hand, like the fuel master. The gates, we joke, we could have a full-time employee working on gates.
Yeah.
It's just constant. So they could have accomplished it, but I think by me being there, it was a buffer. But I'd say on average, if we're really, when do you think? August is when it's really hitting hard. July, August, the grass is just,
July to September.
yeah, I'm probably doing a good, probably seed
most of
time,
us
probably
do it our
20
yard.
hours a week.
Right.
But you gotta remember now, I'm on that big John Deere and I'm mowing a swath 20 feet wide. The other thing that we've started doing is, rather than just going mow for the sake of mowing, we're trying to evaluate areas that have already been claimed. In other words, where there was trees removed in the past. And those areas, they may not be needed currently, but what we try to do is we go try to mow those periodically. There's other areas that need it bi-weekly, or not bi-weekly, bi-monthly. So there's a lot of variables. And when you get into the grass areas on the side of the runway, there is a term that Bobby's probably very familiar with. It's called an off-runway excursion. And it's not like a tour guide is taking you, it's when the airplane leaves the runway. So if the grass is too tall, some of these lighter airplanes could be impeded and they could actually, I suppose there's a remote possibility if the grass were high and thick enough, they could actually cause the airplane to flip or change directions and go. So that's why it's been so vital in the, I don't know, in the last 3 years that we've really tried to maintain, and it's not just for aesthetics, but it's also safety.
Yeah,
So,
okay, thanks.
Can I make a comment? I mean, mowing, yeah, manpower is one thing, but there's a lot of times that we have operations out here with the military, and needing staffing for fueling those aircraft. And it gets really busy at times when they're using our airport for their operations or their training evolutions. I mean, you may have 10 helicopters here, and then you have one person that knows how to use the fuel truck, and they all need fuel. So surge in staffing levels on those types of events is something that y'all need to think about. And Scott's been out here in the middle of the night trying to fuel, helicopters and
right.
just, we had so much going on at one time, we had like 3-4 different military events going on.
And joking about the 4 to 12, so one of the instances, Mike Brackenberry, the previous airfield manager, they wanted fuel at 4:30 in the morning. And I think military did, and then they were gonna want it again at 10:30 in the morning, and they were gonna want it at 2:30. Well, their schedule went right on into the evening, and Mike's like, I've been up, I got up at 3 this morning to get out here, because you got to sump the truck, you got to make sure your fuel quality's there. And I just told him, I said, look, I'll come out here for the 8 o'clock and the 11 o'clock fueling just to give you some relief. So
it's more than just fueling an aircraft. You fuel an aircraft or fuel a few aircraft, then you gotta build the truck up again. That takes time. That's a half-hour event, if not longer, depending on the truck. So for staffing levels, keep that in the back of your head, because they'll come in for training. I don't know if y'all have a schedule on it, but if I recall, it seemed like January, February, March, they were really wanting to use, it was Marine Corps doing drops, it was Air Force, it was National Guard, it was a lot of military entities using this airport for training. So, and they wanted to buy our fuel, and we wanted to sell the fuel to them.
right.
But you don't have the staffing level to make it work.
Can talk about it.
Well, it's on the forefront. Craig and I have talked about that and looking at what those demands are and looking at it throughout the year. Do we have to ramp up at certain times because of seasonal demands? So that's going to be looked at. That's already on his radar. So
A lot of airports just depend on volunteers. I mean, I know that Scott, you do a great job, but a lot of airports, you know, it's all retired, you know, folks or whatever that just have an interest in the airport, but
So when I was on the board, I would volunteer and I would
Yeah.
come out and I would fuel.
Yeah.
I'd drive the truck and all that stuff. So yes, Scott volunteered.
yeah, everybody, yeah. And it does go back to the budgetary issue. Money's not there, it just becomes hard to, to do that, so.
Well, we used to, years ago, we had a board member work day. And I think that was just for the camaraderie, but it was also to let the board members get more engaged, you know, because we did have people, like you said, you've never been out of the runways here. A lot of people don't have that opportunity, but when we have a work day, it was beneficial to kind of get the board in the field and let them see what the issues were.
And that was back when we had just one employee, the airport
Right,
manager,
right.
so that was the reason for that
We've
as
come a
well.
long ways, but listen,
That's not a bad idea. I mean, I used to do that in the workforce all the time, and so folks can become multi-talented. And you don't have to depend on one person, and he's
Right.
available, right, in that situation.
Cross-training for sure.
Cross-training and creates a lot of camaraderie. There's a lot of good things that come out of something like that. So,
All right. That's it? Okay. Mr. Sherbach.
Well, the FDOT inspection went well, as Mr. Ludwig described. The only thing they found was the same thing they found last year, was our runway indicators and identifier markings were faded, and our whole short lines were faded. I did reach out to the striping company that's preferred by the Department of Transportation, and got a quote on for doing the entire runway, both the entire runway, and it was $144,000. So since this is the second year that we've had these same deficiencies, maybe we can move up a little bit in the hierarchy of getting some money for that. So, you know, keep your fingers crossed, that's coming up. As it is, I mean, the airport's functional, you can see the numbers from the air, everything looks good. It's a little faded, discolored. Other than that, we're good. All the distances from the center line to clearance were all good. Our slope was good on our coming in on 5. It was, I believe it was like 28 to 1.
I remember a 34 on
30,
some.
yeah, that one was
I
34
don't
to 1
remember which
because
one.
our nav approach. The others had to be 20 to 1, and we had like 23 to 28. So we're all good on that. Next item is the avgas. Our pump is about a year old now, and it's starting to scream. So that tells me maybe the bearings are getting a little. Blackmar has discontinued supporting that pump. And also the gearbox that goes with it. So, I would like to get a rebuild kit and just have it here in case we need it. And the price on that is $1,100. Also, the gearbox that goes with it is $1,955. I'd like to do a check on the gearbox to see how good it is, whether there's any friction material inside of it before we bite off on one of these. But to have this combination together in our back pocket would keep us from having to re-pipe that entire system if the pump goes down. Because we'll get a new pump, new gearbox, and the piping will have to be redone, and that'll be some downtime. So I think it'll be in our best interest to go ahead and do that. I'll bring that up at the next meeting with some definite numbers and whether or not we need that gearbox or not.
you shared with me that you thought we were due for a new fuel farm, or new fuel tank. Is that in 24?
That's in 24.
Bill, are you aware of that?
Yeah, there's a project, funding request to, add volume, add storage volume,
Okay.
12,000 gallons.
I had told Mike that my concern was if the pump is now obsolete, maybe even buy 2 rebuild kits, because like you said, you have to get somebody to come in and physically change the plumbing, and that's all welded. You've got gasoline and jet fuel. Obviously, it takes a lot of care, and set up, and there's no telling how long we would be down if they had to replumb that. So I don't know, like you say,
I think the project is to expand jet storage. So the next project coming up is to add a jet, and I assume it would just be manifold, and we're not,
Correct.
I don't think we would be replacing the pump in that project unless we can demonstrate that it's out beyond its useful life.
We actually have a spare pump for the, jet.
Okay.
Yeah. We're in good shape there.
So you're gonna bring some numbers back for the next meeting?
I will.
Okay.
The other event is the bull riding event. Every airport ought to have a bull riding event.
what?
He's not kidding.
I'm not,
Urban cowboy.
a gentleman approached us earlier this last week. He's a local gentleman over on 315C, and he was like to use some of our area for a bull riding event. I'm going to table that one on this meeting. I just want to let you know it's real and it's coming up, and it'll be up to you to say yes or no, and how much to lease the land for 4 days.
What kind of bull?
A lot
Usually a mean one. A big,
This is for
big mean.
people to bring their bulls and lope along on them, not rodeo, right?
Welcome to Florida.
Right.
CBR class bull riding event. You can bring the arena, the stadium, all this stuff.
Does he clean up the chips after?
He will disc up the area and clean it up, and he'll leave it.
There you go.
It'll get better for you.
It'll grow faster.
We're gonna ask him to provide some more information on this and some background and some of the stuff that he's done in the past.
We might be the first airport to have a fly-in bull riding.
He does supply his own insurance, and he said he even has a ambulance on site. So,
Good God.
Just one?
we'll have more next go around, and he wanted to do this in the November, December timeframe, so probably in the next November meeting, we'll have to address this with a little less levity.
The 42 J
Craig
Ranch.
Craig and Mike and I talked about this afternoon, and what I asked them to do is meet with this gentleman and have him bring to Mike and Craig a Google Earth on the parcels, the areas that he's wanting to use. Also to bring information about other events, similar events that he's had somewhere else, so we would have a record of that, knowledge of that. We could look into that and then look at all of the details involved, because depending on the number, then that's going to require coordination with Bradford County Sheriff's Department for traffic flow and, again, parking. There's a lot of other logistic issues. Craig shared with me this afternoon an event policy, and that he had his previous airport. It really looks good. There's some things in there that we need to look at implementing in ours. In fact, talking about modifying that one and bringing that to the board too. So they're going to meet with them, and then if they think it's feasible, then they'll bring it back to us next month as an agenda item. And to have this gentleman come in and do a short presentation and answer any questions that we may have.
And you'll get a ride. You'll get a free ride out of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely not. That's one thing I can assure you. Just as I assured Craig, he would not have to shovel snow.
Yeah.
So, all right. Is that it?
That's it for me.
Thank you, Mr.
Don't
Turbine.
forget that November's when they have crawling for the fallen with the
Right,
Jeeps.
during the.
So it can't conflict with that. Yeah, I don't know what their days are this year.
It's always around Veterans Day, November the 11th.
Okay.
Yep.
That's so funny.
Okay. Madam Mayor, I know Lynn gave a lot of dates and information last.
We'll try to bring it in,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, that's kind of crazy. Okay, so here's some updates Lynn provided to me. Tonight is National Night Out for our sheriff's office. So if you guys do get a chance to wander over to the pavilion this evening, I saw them, there's a fair amount of people over there, food truck and whatnot. They're doing some demonstrations. They'll be there to 9 o'clock tonight over at the pavilion, and they're on the upper parking lot, so you don't have to walk down the steps. I got to head over there tonight also. I'm going to, as one of my goals for being mayor, I felt it was really important to reach out to the citizens beyond just business owners as well. So my goal is to sit down with citizens and they can ask me anything they want to ask me, and I'm going to start doing this on a monthly basis, meeting public. And I'm going to move the times around so it can meet other people's job situations or whatever. But my first one is on October 14th. It's Saturday from 10 till noon at the pavilion. So looking forward to doing that. And I'll have some refreshments there. I haven't decided yet what, but I'll have something. So as you all heard last night, some of you, seat 3 is open on the city council. Mr. Bobby Brown was taken very ill, as most of you may know, and he has decided to resign. So we're really sad to lose him. But we will want to appoint someone. I want to say we're looking for letters to be submitted no later than October 13th for folks who would be interested. And it would be a 5-month position because Bobby's time was up, or no, I think in April, we can vote to replace or carry that position on should he decide to, go through the process, right? The city council apparently does select that individual who submits, and we go from there for those 5 months. It gives us back to the 5. So, anxious to get that going again. So let's see here, we have a special council meeting it's to appoint seat 3, and then the first reading of the ordinance that I mentioned last night to amend to the charter and the parks rule based, it's going to be rules order on October 23rd at 10 o'clock.
That's a special call meeting on the 23rd.
Yes, and because it's a special council meeting, we can vote. We vote at those. We don't vote at the workshops. Let's see. We're having a council workshop. So we're having that special council meeting on the 23rd at 10. At 10:30 on the 23rd, we're doing a workshop to discuss the fishing pier that's with the Save the Lakes project. It's a big pier that she's and she apparently has funding, and it's been in the city budget apparently for a while. So try to see that coming to fruition with everything with the lakes happening. And then the Heritage Commission wants to basically build a museum for all the historic things in Keystone. So we're going to have a workshop to kind of brainstorm about that.
What time is that workshop?
That starts at 10:30. I'm going to guess this may go on for an hour or two. I don't know. Depends on, how many comments are made, stuff like that. Then we have the Boo on the Boulevard, October 28th. This is also a city event where all the businesses open up for the kids to come around, and they have all kinds of stuff for the kids. It's kind of like a trick-or-treat, but they get trick-or-treat again on the 31st. But it'll be all through the downtown businesses. I understand. I, of course, will be up to the game in Athens, or in Jacksonville, the Georgia Florida game. But I heard last year was really packed. Like, you could hardly even drive through the town. It was crazy. They line all up and down 21.
It was huge.
It's
And
huge,
they
yeah.
close off the street there and everything, so the kids.
I hate I'm going to miss it again.
It's gonna be a big deal.
We still had several hundred trick-or-treaters when we got back on the 31st. Our next regular meeting is November 20th. And I believe that'll be our last official meeting for the year for the council. And then we will start posting positions, as you all heard. So many of you may not know this, and I didn't know this till recently, which I think is a tragedy. Just like you talk about having the right staff here, I think you have those folks that need to be here that really help things happen. And then you have your folks, like you said, your volunteers or whatever you decide how you want to staff that. But Lynn's been operating without a city clerk for her entire tenure, which is over 6 years now. Yep. I don't know of any, I know right now, Palaca's being run by a city clerk because they lost their city manager. But how do you do that when you're doing it all and you never have time off? Never. And it is a 24/7 job, no doubt. And, when I heard that, I was really, especially when she announced that she was considering resigning, I was like, I don't care what happens, as I mentioned it the other night, going into it, we will have a city clerk in position. And we will, whatever decides with city manager, that person's going to be in place and being able to do things prior to that happening, no matter what we decide to do. Because it's not fair. Who would want to come and take a job like that? I mean, I tease Lynn all the time. I say, you make like $2 an hour. I mean, it's crazy. So we're going to, just like you all did here, we're going to speed that process up. And I think that certainly there's plenty of folks out there that could qualify and make it happen pretty quick. I wanted to add too, when you're talking, Bobby, about the whole workshop thing. I too came in, I don't have a political background, I don't have working for city government, experience. I have working with federal government and all that through my company with Abbott that I worked in healthcare, but not really in the role that I'm in now. So I really had a lot of questions too. And we couldn't really do much unless we're all sitting like this because of sunshine, right? And so I really have started having more workshops because I want to know what everybody on the board, why they were doing their job. Why are you doing this? What do you like about it? Here's some things I would like to do or that I think I can bring to the table and do things a little differently than maybe some of the things you guys may have thought you were doing. Just kind of get outside the box thinking about stuff. So it really gives you the platform to brainstorm and let everyone kind of weigh in, and really not too different than like we did with this whole hiring process, I think, which I thought was handled incredibly well. But I encourage y'all to do that because a lot of you are new to the group, and it kind of opens up some doors for more discussions that you don't kind of take up during the time of a regular meeting. Because like you said, the public don't want to come stay here and watch it on YouTube forever and all that, So I found that the workshops have been very beneficial. And the public can attend that as well. But it gives you a little bit more freedom to kind of toss around, and you're not on such a time constraint.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I forgot to ask if our Camp Landing Road rep wanted to share anything. All right. Well, we appreciate you guys. Thanks for all you do there at Camp Landing and working with the airport when there's issues that need to be handled between the two entities. So we always want to continue that. All right. Any other board member comments since we've added that to the agenda?
I'd like to say I thought the interview that day, I thought we all worked well together, and I think we all benefited because I think we had a good candidate here. So I appreciate all the input everybody had, and I thought we did have a lot of good back and forth, and I thought we worked well as a team, and I appreciate it.
I want to thank the mayor and Ms. Lynn, city manager, for being a part of that selection committee. That whole process came together well, the workshop, especially when we were determining questions, and compliments to the board for the questions that you submitted to Lynn to be asked to the candidates during the interviews. I thought that was done very well. And overall, given the fast track that we had put it on, I think it went well, and we have great results from it. So compliments to all of you, and thanks.
Thank you.
No?
We're excited to have you.
Yeah, I'm very excited to be here, and I was really impressed just not only with the facilities, which I let Mr. Kirkland know some of the nicest facilities that I've seen on a smaller, or not, I shouldn't say smaller, but a GA airport in general. A lot of times they just don't have the funding to do that, and so it's really impressive. But then to have everyone committed to go through all those steps, and I mean, I don't know what all was involved, but I thought, man, these folks are really committed to trying to make the right decision. And so that's important to me too, when you're trying to make a decision on where you want to be, so.
Excellent. I do want to mention one thing that Mr. Seamer will probably be interested in. At the county commissioner meeting this morning, there was a big emphasis on making the month of October 4-H recognition. They had a proclamation for them, plus they hired a new extension agent. So a lot of 4-Hers were there, and some of the folks from University of Florida Extension Services was there. And I introduced myself after the meeting and shared with them, hey, we'd love to have, if you want to bring your kids out to the airport for, just to learn things about airport. And they were just absolutely thrilled. In fact, she said, well, can we collaborate with our Clay County 4-H group and come as, a whole group? And I said, certainly. And so I've mentioned that to Craig and Mike this afternoon, that we're going to be hearing from them to schedule that. But one of the other interesting things, so one of the guys with the UF Extension office, one of their services is they help entities with forestry, with grass, all kind of different things that are related to that. So when I heard that, I thought, okay, you're definitely a resource that we're going to put to use. So I'll get that information to you as well.
Okay, thank you.
So it's a good thing. It's good.
Tell the kids to come out and ride a bull.
That's part of 4-H, That's one of the things they get involved with. But all right, any other comments? All right, it is 7:14. We'll consider ourselves adjourned. And we went 14 minutes longer than the mayor did last night.
Hey, J-Rob, when you come next month, can you bring a bunch of those colored laminated risk assessment cards? I'm gonna teach a little class. That bull riding out there.